with Sam Seder.
The destiny of America is always safer in the hands of the people than in the conference rooms of any elite.
Sam Seder.
They are unanimous in their hate for me, and I welcome their hatred.
We must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
And I get the feeling you've been cheated.
It is Thursday, January 2nd, 2025.
Yeah.
My name is Sam Seder. This is the five-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Kiwanis Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, it's 2025. Happy New Year. Investigators searching for potential links between the Vegas and New Orleans attacks. Meanwhile, Israeli strike kills 12 more in Gaza, including children. Trump issues a warning to Hamas. This after Israel has destroyed all healthcare facilities in total in northern Gaza, nearly across all of Gaza. And at least 8 babies have now died in Gaza of hypothermia. Also on the program today, House Republicans just changed the House rules to avoid motions to vacate and also to eliminate ethics.
Oh, they had those still?
Mike Johnson to seek speakership in a vote tomorrow. Roy Cooper, outgoing governor of North Carolina, commute sentences of 15 men on death row. That after Biden last week commuted 37 sentences of men on death row, leaving only 3. Meanwhile, Musk and Ramaswamy, their H-1B visa defense still rankling the MAGA plebes. Dartmouth basketball team drops its unionization effort in anticipation of Trump's National Labor Relations Board regime. East Coast longshoremen, their strike still in the offing. We'll know in about 2 weeks. Power restored to Puerto Rico following a New Year's Eve privatized blackout. Ukraine halts Russian gas exports to Eastern Europe as a pre-war transit deal expires. Newly released Brookings report shows that the 2020 crime spike happened before the George Floyd murder, laying waste to the Floyd effect argument.
It's sometimes markets anticipate changes.
Nobody knows what we're talking about. What are we saying?
I know.
The Floyd effect?
Massive review of 100 studies finds that masks are in fact effective in reducing transmission of respiratory diseases.
At what cost, though?
Face diaper defender.
All this and more on today's Majority Report. Yes, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Bradley, Matt, Emma.
On a Thursday, you are
I'm here on a Thursday.
It's
I
very
was so itching to
disorienting.
come in. Last night, I had a dream that I was watching a Judiciary Committee hearing and Dick Durbin froze.
Not in carbonite, you made it clear to me before.
No, just more like Mitch McConnell.
Right.
And so I thought, it's so important that I get back to work. I'm dreaming
Wait, the
about
dream
Dick.
was that he did a McConnell and he froze?
Yeah. And everybody's just sort of waiting on him. And he's just sort of looking like.
Yeah. That's interesting. So you were dreaming about politics. That's how you know it's time for you to come back into
No, I always dream about politics, but it's so rare I dream about Dick Durbin.
I'm glad it was that kind
And
of dream.
elderliness of our representatives.
Yep.
Yeah.
we got a lot to get to. We missed a lot, of course.
Yep.
Jimmy Carter passed away. We'll talk about him briefly at the end of the program. There was a scuttlebutt about immigration. I mean, the real story of the Trump, over the past week and a half or so, I did my best to step away from stuff. And I did to a certain extent, although, I spent a decent amount of time thinking about, where are we going to take the show? And I think, maybe on Monday or Tuesday, we'll go through some more of that, in a more cohesive way. Obviously, the first four Trump administration was radically different in terms of just this job than it had been for me. At that point, I had been doing it 12 years. And the pace of things, the amount of news, the editorial function becomes far more important in an era like this, where part of what they're doing is just generating news by design. Yeah. Bannon has talked about overloading the system. And part of what we do here on a daily basis, always, any news organization or any, whatever you want to call what we do here, the editorial decisions you make are almost as important, if not more so in certain instances, than the opinions that you give.
Absolutely.
Because you are making an unstated opinion from the get-go, and one that is far less obvious. When we give you our opinion about something, you know that we're giving an opinion. When we eliminate certain stories and don't cover them, and it's not like a nefarious thing, it's just like, what do we think is most important?
Discretion.
We are telling you without telling you what we think is important. And that's what you get exposed to. And so, during, and so we always do that, but during the Trump years, the amount of stories on any given day that in any other circumstance would warrant coverage from this show, there's just usually too many. And we're trying to figure out the best ways of doing that, but also finding stories that I think are really important, like stories that are going to take place within agencies that there's not a lot of reporting on. We're trying to figure out ways in which to get that stuff. There are trade magazines out there, ag magazines that follow those. I guess investment magazines that follow what happens at the SEC, labor, and they're usually bought by private enterprise so that they can plan what they're going to do to avoid increase in regulation or realize that they don't have to worry about past regulation. And the problem is those trade things, I've looked at, cost like $10,000 a month. And we do not have that in our budget, surprisingly enough. But if you're aware of those type of magazines, send us these trade journals that follow things like, Government Executive is one that I read. I mean, not, I don't want to make it sound like that's what I do for a fun time. But you can send them to majorityreporters@gmail.com and just put in the subject line trade magazine. You can help us out because that's one of the things that we definitely want to cover. But then it's really just deciding, what's going to come through. One of the things that I think is really, people have asked me, like, how bad do you think it's going to be? I don't know. But there are two stories in the news today that I think give us a little bit of indication of, and one that's passed, that I think are sort of going to be at the forefront. More than anything else, the game is going to be played in the executive agencies because Congress is going to be locked up. They can barely even
except
get
for the
a 3 month.
Senate. The Senate will greenlight Donald Trump's extremist judges,
100%.
but the House, until at least April, they're functionally working with a 2-seat majority, and
there's going to be
it's
no
already
legislation.
causing massive issues, right?
Legislation is going to be very, very slim, but
maybe some tax cuts.
The Senate function of confirming is going to happen very rapidly. The other thing is going to be, it's all going to happen on the agency level. But the big thing, I think, is going to be immigration, because that's where you have the most dedicated, fervent, ultra nationalist, xenophobic, fascistic-y Trump people. And they're going for it. That's
his constituency. Like the thing that could have hurt him or could have hindered him. Hindered him. The thing that's unique about his win this time is the fact that he ran such an undisciplined campaign that was largely just him shooting the breeze as he went on stage and blowing microphones and fantasizing about Kamala getting hit or whatever. But the central theme was immigration. And the two stories that you mentioned that happened over our break that both center around immigration within the party. So like we're preparing for, I think, a lot of pain and suffering to people who are in this country on an undocumented basis or who may be documented, but who are still going to be targeted by the Trump administration.
There's one more piece to this. A lot of the things that the Trump administration did, particularly in the first year or two, maybe even third year of its presidency, was thwarted by the courts because they didn't know how government operated. And often they were just caught up in, they didn't follow procedure, they didn't follow regulation, they didn't follow law, whatever it was. This is a drastically different federal judiciary than it was in 2016. A full quarter to half of the federal judiciary has been appointed by Trump or George W. Bush, maybe even more. And the Supreme Court, obviously, 6-3 for Trump. Roberts issued a defense on Tuesday of this week, I guess it was 2 days ago, in his annual report on the federal judiciary, basically saying he was concerned about the threat from intimidation, disinformation, and the prospect of public officials defying court orders. I think they are aware that the Trump administration, at least in the context, I think, of immigration, I think Stephen Miller is going to be like, you and what army are going to stop us? And so I think we're going to see a bunch of that. But we will see. But in the meantime, let's talk about this, because we can see the ramp up, right? On day one, when they start trying to deport people, and I don't know how it's actually going to work in practice. I suspect you're going to see a lot of people in camps in Texas because they can't get through the system as it exists today in a way that is going to be sort of like timely in any way. And they're going to end up just warehousing people in concentration camps, essentially. And I would imagine most of those are going to be in Texas.
There's already talk about them allocating land for that exact purpose.
And what you need to see, though, as some type of predicate. Remember, there was that Fifth Circuit judge who was auditioning to be a Supreme Court justice who was talking about naturalized citizens and birthright citizenship. And he said, well, there are sort of exceptions to this. Like if there's an invasion coming from across the border. Now, in reality, we know that the number of immigrants who are coming across the border now is at like a, I don't know, decade low. I mean, in part, that was because of very, in my estimation, egregious policies by Biden administration. But that's just the fact. Much harder to imply that there's an invasion happening when there's less people coming across the border now than there was during Trump's first term.
And like the way we think of border security has never occurred. That border, that border has never been secure that the way that, frankly, both parties pretend like they can do.
It can't be done. And the idea of our border being secure, like, what does that mean?
Right.
Fully half of the, supposed 11 million undocumented here came in on documents and just overstayed their visas. Yeah. Nevertheless, if you're going to claim that there's some type of invasion or some type of problem that would justify some type of extraordinary measures on January 22nd or 21st, you need to start laying the groundwork. So if some U.S. Army veteran, U.S. citizen goes on a rampage in New Orleans or blows up a Tesla in Vegas, what do you got to do? You got to pretend like it's a some type of immigrant attack. This is Fox News actually having to fact check Donald Trump. This is number 2.
Meanwhile, the man who's moving into this White House behind me in less than 3 weeks, President-elect Donald Trump put out a statement on social media earlier today that reads as follows. When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all the innocent victims and their
now,
loved
there's
ones,
some truth to the crime level is really down. Significantly in some areas.
Almost every area except shoplifting. There was
shoplifting. It's now actually increased to 2019 levels.
Pre-pandemic
levels. Shoplifting had gone down during the pandemic, and it's now back up to 2019 levels.
But violent crime, murders, assaults all dropped significantly last year.
At a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts are with all the innocent victims and their loved ones, including the brave officers of the New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans as they investigate and recover from this act of pure evil. Now, the former president said criminals coming in his statement, meaning into our country. But to be clear, Molly and Brian, the suspect was born in the United States. He served in the United States Army. He was a veteran. The FBI is the lead agency in this investigation, going through the social media and any other accounts associated with the suspect. But
yeah, just wanted to make that clear. Totally American.
I mean, but is he totally American? Because he's not white, which is like so when you talk about the immigration levels being, or the border crossings being at a low at this point, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because this is all a pretext to demonize people who are non-white. And right now there's like this project to reclaim this movement, to say, oh, it's not really about that. They're populist. They're pro-worker. No, they're not. Like, I'm reminded of in 2016, do you remember that judge who was of Mexican ancestry but was born in Indiana, who Donald Trump said was biased towards him? This is the same thing. Because the guy in New Orleans, the suspect, is not white, it's a problem of immigration, because when they say immigration, they mean non-white people. And let's deal with them. Let's deal with this issue on its face and not pretend like,
maybe you're jaded.
Perhaps.
Let's listen to the border czar, Tom Homan, who, guards the border, probably both the Canadian one and the Mexican one, the one we have with both those countries. Here he is talking about the story of, I guess it was the Cybertruck that was exploded in Vegas. Incidentally, that guy who committed that, also U.S. veteran.
So this is just another danger this country faces, because this country's been lax on national security, and groups like this been emboldened. I mean, when you got, protesters walking down the streets in New York City carrying terrorist flags, chanting death to Israel and death to the United States, and nothing's being done about it. And when you have a border that was secure under President Trump, and this administration unsecured it on purpose, it's an open invitation for those around the world that hate this country.
To put into perspective,
incidentally, none of these attacks came from outside of this country. None of them came from people who are critical of Israel.
At least that we know of
attack
right
on Palestinians anyways.
But yeah, I mean, you can see how Israel is used as like a proxy for American interests against the scary hordes of Muslim people around the world.
What does the border security guy have anything to do with these attacks? But the idea is any opportunity they're going to be able to take over the next couple of weeks to blame anything on immigration they're going to take because they need to gin this stuff up.
Yes, and the thing that is frustrating about the whole thing is that it does the immigration stuff that they exploit does near a truth, which is that our immigration system is about disciplining workers in this country, whether it be, we'll talk about it later, that H-1B situation fight where that's when your employer has basically control over your immigration status. That's the leftist critique of it. Or when it's the threats of deportation for workers who are undocumented and sub-minimum wage. Those are used to basically keep workers in line in this country. And so this is the Republicans trying to pit white workers against non-white workers. And that is the heart of our immigration system. Instead of actually making things equitable for people, they're trying to demonize a whole group, and they are succeeding at this moment.
When Rashida Tlaib was on Hassan's stream a few weeks ago, she says that every time that an immigration bill comes up, she tries to put on that business owners and that hire laborers face penalties, and that's never included.
Never.
But if you did that and E-Verify, a lot of this would be solvable. So you don't actually want to solve it. They just want to, like Emma said, discipline workers.
Let's play this one last clip. This is Representative Dan Mercer. He is a Republican from Pennsylvania, 9th District, on with Fox's Cheryl Casson. I want you to watch this and think about the biggest attack we've ever had in this country and whether the letters DEI existed in the context in which we understand them today.
How concerned should we be about homegrown terrorism? And, these ideologies, there was an ISIS flag on the back of his truck, these ideologies seeping into the hearts and minds of Americans. Is this the new threat, in your opinion?
Well, it's certainly a threat, and that's why we need focus, and we need readiness, and we need clarity and priorities. The priority of the last 4 years has been DEI, if you will, not IEDs. And that's the truth. You talk to anyone who's willing to speak within these agencies, that's what their focus has been, not on this level of high-level preparation. I mean, let's face it, Director Wray raided the former president's home. The amount of time and energy and intelligence and funding had to go into something as useless as that, when meanwhile he testifies that we've never had a higher terrorist level due to threat, due to the open border, and these others getting radicalized. Look, there were flags on these guys. I mean, I'm hearing now that they may have actually known each other and been radicalized together. Now, that's unconfirmed, but it's possible. So, yeah, we've got to get very, very serious about the work to be done. President Trump's a serious guy. He's bringing in serious people. It's not about DEI. It's about the safety and security of the American people.
It's fascinating and also completely consistent with what you're saying. They didn't put up the picture of that guy, Matthew Livelsberger, who was the Army vet who blew up the Tesla, because he appears to be super white.
Yeah, just a white guy.
Right? But
just plain white guy.
How do we know that he wasn't indoctrinated by the DEI?
He could have been indoctrinated by the DEI, but they chose only to show the brown guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because they had to talk about DEI.
We'll show his picture once we can put him next to like being supportive of trans issues.
Right. I mean,
you know how big the DEI agency was in the Bush administration in 2001 on 9/11?
Got to be massive. That was a huge attack.
It was incredibly stealth. But the point being, like, this is just absurd.
I know.
But this is what, when they do this, they are setting the table for what they are anticipating is going to happen on day one, if not day two, if not day three of the Trump administration. So buckle up and get ready for what's coming. This is they are laying the predicate, and we'll see if they go ahead with it.
Yeah.
I've been back for half an hour I'm already thinking about February vacation because I think I might go to Mexico.
Oh my goodness.
My mom used to go, when she retired, she would go and teach in Oaxaca for like 3 or 4 months out of the year. She would live in she would rent
That's really
a room.
nice.
Yeah. But I never made it down there to visit her. So I'm hoping maybe the February break I can do that. But it has given me extra incentive to learn Spanish.
There you go.
Yo hablo español.
Well, I need this because, I chose to learn Latin in high school and it has not served me well.
That's
so
what happens with lawyer kids.
I need
It's gonna teach you about every language.
Jesus. Yes, that's exactly what happens.
You say you want to learn a new language every year, but few of us actually commit to it. I've got an easy way for you to learn a new language. It's Babbel. Babbel's great. It's an app on your phone. They have 10-minute tiny lessons. It's all conversational, super easy to do this. I can listen to like 2 or 3 lessons just on my walk to work. This year, you can speak like a whole new you with Babbel. It is the learning language app that gets you talking. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, gets you to begin speaking a new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in other languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. Spending months with private teachers is the old way of learning languages. Nothing screams tourist like holding a phone translation app to your face all day. Babbel's tips and tools are inspired by the real-life stuff you actually need when communicating. And with a focus on conversation, you're going to be ready to talk wherever you go. You want proof that Babbel gets you talking? Studies from Yale, Michigan, other leading universities continue to prove Babbel works. One study found that using Babbel for 15 hours is equivalent to a full semester at college, but for literally thousands upon thousands upon thousands of dollars less. Over 16 million subscriptions sold. Babbel's 14 award-winning language courses are backed by a 20-day money-back guarantee. This year, get talking with Babbel. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting our listeners 60% off of subscriptions. Babbel.com/majority. Get up to 60% off at Babbel.com/majority. That's Babbel. Babbel.com/majority. Babbel.com/majority. Rules and restrictions may apply. Do we get rid of that hum?
I think so, yeah.
All right, we got to work that out. Who dat? So both were Army vets trained in violence, living in a country where mainstream media spews hatred and fear all day. Definitely must have been DEI. No other explanation.
Totally.
That's where we're at. I mean, this HB1 fight that took place, I don't know, is it still raging? It seems to be still around. It started with number 6 here. It started, I guess, when did it start? Like,
it was on Christmas, I believe. There was this.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if anybody associated with the Biden administration, like,
was fighting on Christmas?
Yes.
Wouldn't you want to be with one of the dozen kids you ordered through IVF instead?
Elon Musk, the only time his kid appears is when he's a human shield at some public event because he doesn't want to get United Healthcare CEO'd. So now, but otherwise, I'm not sure how much time he spends with his kids.
So these H-1B, did I say H-1B1? I would imagine I did.
You're thinking of a virus.
Yes, exactly. These H-1B visas are visas that are essentially done, as Emma said, through employers for high-paid, skilled workers to come overseas and do jobs like, it could really be any job, but most recently are associated with people coming over to do like tech jobs. And apparently the, the Republicans who voted for Donald Trump, they all, one of the features of a Donald Trump administration was supposed to be no more immigrants. No more immigrants. And the guys working on Doge, the tech bros, Elon Musk, one of our top oligarchic leaders now, who we must pay all homage to, and Vivek Ramaswamy, who they were talking about why these H-1B visas must remain untouched in this assault on immigration. And Vivek, do we have his original tweet?
You mean short?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. His tweetette. This is it goes. Just scroll down to what the date was. I just want to confirm this.
Oh my God, dude.
Oh no, this is the day after Christmas.
Okay.
So it's Boxing Day.
Boxing Day. Okay.
And the reason top tech companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over, quote, Native Americans. Now, this is funny. He's saying, I don't know what he's saying here, because I do think this is worth parsing out. Native Americans, we know, without the quotation, we know, are indigenous people to this land. Now, I guess there was a time when there was no humans on the planet, but within our, sort of understanding of of history, the indigenous in the sense that they were here for thousand upon thousand years.
And then, we colonized this land and we killed many of them.
Yeah, we performed a genocide and we took the land. So that's what we generally mean with native. Now, he's putting native in quotes, I guess, to describe American citizens who are born here. And what's interesting is because he's also being suspicious of that term, because he's also implying that immigrants can also become Americans.
He doesn't want to say white Americans here, I think.
Anyways, it's a very strange use of that of the quotes there. But Native Americans isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit.
Okay.
A lazy and wrong explanation. Okay, so in other words, he is acknowledging that sometimes culture and is
context
formed by other things around you, right? Like he's saying, it's not innate in Americans, but there's something going on with Americans who don't have the ability to be, engineers. And he says a key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Okay, so there's a culture of an American IQ, well, not IQ deficit, but a American deficit of some sort. Tough questions demand tough answers. And if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth.
Oh, we got it. That was he had that truth hat. That was his brand. So he's still branding.
It's all branding
himself
exercise.
Here.
Fantastic. Yeah. Were you also ready the Ann Coulter, Vivek Ramaswamy clip from back when he was running? Because I just want to tune into that. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. Now listen, this has actually been a critique that I have seen for even longer than that. There is a wonderful moment in the Emmys by Mike Nichols and Elaine May, two comedians. Mike Nichols, they both went on to be directors, but they used to do a comedy duo together. And maybe you can find it online, a video of them at the Emmys coming up and accepting an award for their mediocre work. saying that this is an industry that really doesn't care too much about excellence and really just looks at each other. And this culture of mediocrity, I think, and again, these are the most successful people in the business, right? If they're at the Emmys. There is, and maybe this is what he's talking about, a culture in corporate America that basically says, if we're all doing okay, let's just nod and say it's going good. And a lot of times, it's almost like everybody was in the same club for many years and years and years. And they were all letting people in.
But I thought you were going to go with the fact that these first two kind of paragraphs sound like what a lot of right-wingers used to say about black people in this country, that there's a cultural problem with their poverty. And I would say it sounds actually ideologically entirely consistent with J.D. Vance's book, Hillbilly Elegy, which basically uses tropes about poor black people and applies them to poor white people in Appalachia. And so Vivek is saying the same thing. By the way, they're from the same state, Ohio.
Well, what this is the two Charles Murray books. So when he says like the IQ thing is stupid and lazy, that's actually the first Charles Murray book, The Bell Curve, which is, he wrote about black people saying actually they're genetically inferior. That's why they have all these poor outcomes. He wasn't able to say that about white people, so he had to come up with a second book called Losing Ground, which is basically, like you said, the J.D. Vance argument that these people have a cultural deficiency that encourages sort of lack of productivity. Mm-hmm. And I mean, really, that's all J.D. Vance was, and that's what this is.
So when he says native, that's why he can't say what you're saying.
Now, a culture that celebrates the prom queen. I love the fact that he's saying this has been since the 90s. Since the 90s?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it started in the 90s.
Oh my God.
They celebrated the prom queen over the math Olympiad or champ, or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Now,
oh, come on, Vivek. Do not go down this road, buddy. Like, Americans, conservatives love their prom queens and their jocks. That's who they want to be.
I love being a guy born in 1985 that says this probably started in the 90s.
Half of like conservative nostalgia is wishing that they were back in that place where they were like second string safety on their football team and had all their hair.
Now, I mean, this is pretty funny because I will tell you that there has never been a time in America where the prom queen and the jock were less celebrated over the valedictorian or the Olympiad champ than today.
Yeah.
We're at the peak of that so far. Like, it was worse back in the day.
I've seen John Hughes movies.
No, of course.
Why is he starting it in the 90s?
Yeah. But I mean, it's just absurd. And then he says, a culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zach and Slater over Screech and Saved by the Bell, or Stefan over Steve Urkel and Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. And let me just say this, a culture that uses television crappy sitcoms from your childhood as examples for these things also probably won't produce the best engineers.
The problem with our culture is that we don't worship Steve Urkel enough. I think he said it so well.
But now he says, fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity and their kids went on to be wildly successful STEM graduates. Now, let me just say this. If you are a scientist, like an engineer, let's say, and someone was to present you with a theory based upon the multiple families you knew of immigrants, and you drew a straight line from the fact that they could not watch specific sitcoms and therefore they achieved STEM excellence, that person would look at you and go, "You're an idiot."
I was not allowed to watch Disney Channel growing up, and I did not achieve STEM excellence. So I don't care. But maybe it's because I'm a quote Native American. I will say, can I just take this part for a sec? Because have you seen the movie Whiplash?
No.
So he says here, more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends. Now, this guy's a dumbass. Okay, so all of that
What's
stuff.
Whiplash?
Whiplash is a movie about abuse. It's a movie about abuse of an ambitious musician by J.K. Simmons' character. And he sees that. This is what conservatives can't interpret art. Like, it's in the same way that they think they worship Jordan Belfort or the guy who says greed is good in Wall Street movies, or all the mobsters and Tony Soprano.
Oh, they thought Colbert Report was actually promoting conservative values.
He can interpret art. Whiplash is about abuse by a teacher, a mentor, and he sees it as he was pushing him to excellence. What a lunatic. Anyway.
More math tutoring, fewer sleepovers. So
fewer socializing.
Yeah. More weekend science competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV.
I'm not at the
all he's
sleepover
talked
because
about.
I don't
He
want to
hasn't
be there.
referenced a single book, incidentally. He hasn't referenced a single book in this. He mentioned like 50 television shows, as far as I can tell. More creating, less chilling. More extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kind of parents. More normal American kids view those kind of kids with scorn. I don't even know if he was referring
Tell
to.
this to your therapist.
If you grow up
Write a rap
aspiring to
about it.
normalcy is what you will achieve. Now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raise their kids according to one model versus the other. Be brutally honest. My guess is that the families you knew in the 90s,
like the Full House family,
probably the ones that you're talking to did not know any immigrant families, the kind that you're talking about. They did not know the families like yours. In part because it was also in the wake of Pat Buchanan and that other America First movement. Normalcy doesn't cut it in hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. This can be our Sputnik moment. We've awakened from slumber before and we can do it again.
Moment?
So Sputnik actually is where we massively expanded, say, educational loan programs after Russia beat us to have a satellite in space, which is the only thing that extended that to people.
Our Sputnik moment is maintaining the H-1B program?
Isn't it inspiring?
Or is it just crying and thinking about how we should have venerated the nerds and Saved by the Bell more?
We've awakened from slumber before. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up. A culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. That's the work we have cut out for us, rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence. I'm confident we can do it. Now, what's fascinating is that that is not what Trump voters voted for, at least based upon his rhetoric and, frankly, what Trump did in the first Trump administration. Forbes magazine, February 1st, 2021. That is literally days after Joe Biden is sworn in. Members of the Trump administration waged war behind the scenes against companies and foreign-born scientists and engineers. After 4 years telling the story, explains how Trump appointees turned U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services into an organization opposed to the immigration of high-skilled foreign nationals on H-1B visas. It talks about different legislative attempts. Ted Cruz, of course, did a 180 on it. But Cruz did a bill with Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions went on to be the Attorney General. Guess who Jeff Sessions' top aide was when he introduced this legislation? Monsieur Stephen Miller. The Buy American, Hire American executive order was a part of this. Nevertheless, Vivek has his own idea about why Trump was elected and what that meant. It was a vote for mediocrity. And look, let's be honest. I mean, Donald Trump was given hundreds of millions of dollars to, who's this?
I'm worried that this problem goes all the way back to the Eisenhower administration, because we were idolizing
the Sharks and the Jets, but
this is Danny Zuko of Greece and Eugene Felsnick.
But to be honest with you, this was actually done in the 70s. but it was about the 50s. But you could look at Lords of Flatbush and get the same idea.
Although those guys that played the high school students in the movie were probably in high school in the 50s.
Isn't history so difficult to get your grasp on?
Let's go to now. Where are we? This is number. This is number 11. Here is Elon Musk basically saying, going back and fighting against people who have said to him, you are trying to optimize H-1B visas because this is how you make all your money, by basically exploiting these people and bringing them in. Now, they get paid a lot of money.
Yeah.
But they probably don't get paid
market value.
And
if they want to take vacation, or say they have something to do after work and they need to leave an hour early, well, maybe they're going to think twice about that because their immigration status is entirely dependent on their employer renewing it.
Yeah, let's say you work for a massive communications platform and then some crazy billionaire buys it out of nowhere and starts doing crazy stuff to it. But and you might say, like, this goes against my ethics, but it doesn't go against my visa, so I'm going to have to stick with that.
Exactly.
Here is Elon Musk really basically striking out at people. He doesn't like people using his platform to criticize him, apparently. It's just a tweet. We're not going to play a video.
He responds to this up here.
All right, Elon, stop trying to optimize something that shouldn't exist. Everyone's been trained in high school and college, and you answer the question. Convenient logic. Here, let's listen to what the response is to.
The sort of 5-step process. First, make your requirements less dumb. Your requirements are definitely dumb. It does not matter who gave them to you. It's particularly dangerous if a smart person gave you the requirements, because you might not question them enough.
This is just engineering
wrong,
stuff,
no matter
right?
who you are, everyone's wrong some of the time. So make your requirements less dumb. Then try very hard to delete the part or process. This is actually very important. If you're not occasionally adding things back in, you are not deleting enough. Right. The bias tends to be very strongly towards let's add this part or process step in case we need it. But you can basically make in-case arguments for so many things, and for a rocket that is.
Okay. So the caption is just basically criticizing him, right? For
basically saying apply your engineering shtick to this immigration stuff.
Right, which is sociopathic. And he responded and took the side of Vivek, basically saying the reason I'm in America, along with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong, is because of H-1B. Take a big step back and F yourselves in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend. No. So that's the fissure, is in between the people. When we played that video earlier of that attack in New Orleans, that he's not white, but he's American, was born in Texas. It doesn't matter, though. They're making it an immigration problem. That is the fissure between the capitalist gods like Elon Musk, who are running the party, and the rank and file MAGA Republicans, rank and file Republicans, who are just nativists and racist, and they don't really care about what he's trying to say, which is like, don't you guys care that these visas help us make more money? Don't you care that we can bring in these people who are highly skilled and hold their immigration status over them so they can be the most productive workers for us and make all this money? But they're like, no, we don't care. That's what the Trump base says. We care about getting rid of the brown people and of the immigrants.
What is so fascinating about this is that Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, and I will, Pink Lady has said, a reminder, Sam, when you're mispronouncing Vivek's name, that you all took issue with racist and sexist mispronouncing of Kamala Harris's name. It's also just not it is not a very clever joke. I am not mispronouncing his name because I am doing it with a very specific agenda in mind, calling him smarmy. So what Musk and Ramaswamy seem to be saying here is that, look, there are aspects of cultures outside of America that breed excellence. And when people come to this country as immigrants, because he's also saying it was immigrant families too. When immigrant families come to this country, they also breed excellence because they are so much more focused on success. If this is a function of immigrants, right? They're just saying immigrants. They're not saying rich immigrants. If it's just a function of immigrants, why in the world would this not apply to someone who has come into this country to work on farms, to pick peaches, to work in construction, to work wherever they are working? They have the same ethic, according to Vivek and Elon. Why should it only apply to the workers that they hire to bring in? I got no problem with allowing labor to have as much ability to enter this country as we do, or exit this country as we do with capital. That's all well and good. And if we're to take their argument seriously, that there is a culture that these immigrants have that causes them to pursue excellence more than is in this country, then we should probably allow more immigrants in so we have more of that culture.
That's immigrants working hard to achieve the American dream is a trope that we've known our entire lifetimes here, right? But the culture is not something that's inherent. It's a reflection of not having, say, generational wealth like more white people do in this country than any other ethnic group. It's a function of the fact that they have been uprooted and are starting from scratch and have no choice but to work as hard as they can and to make as much money and to live and have kind of things like vacation or off time or family time much less than most Americans. And what the freaks like Elon Musk and Ramaswamy are saying are that they want more of that. They want to engender more desperation, whether it be via the threat of deportation for undocumented workers, or whether it be through programs like H-1B. They want to. It's not about an inherent culture. It's about creating that culture of fear and desperation to extract as much as they can from a workforce.
It's about work or starve. Like, that's the culture here. And like Bernie, Warren Gunnels points out, who was like a Bernie advisor, I believe, the very first amendment Bernie passed in the Senate would have substantially increased the fees companies pay to hire H-1B guest workers to fund scholarships for Americans pursuing degrees in science, engineering, and math. It passed 59-35 in 2007, but did not become law. And people have done studies on this, that the H-1B program has moved people domestically to not seek those fields because it is suppressing the wages, regardless of how much these people make. And you might feel like it's the same thing with sports. It is serving the capitalists at top, both the people picking stuff out of fields and the guys doing code for 80 hours a week. The people who are making money off this are capitalists. That's why Trump used illegal labor in Trump Tower. That's why Elon likes these programs, because he can say, oh, you don't like this? See ya.
Exactly.
Sayonara.
Exactly. And that's why healthcare functions the way it does in this country, too.
If what Vivek was saying happened, they would not be, they would just be paying those H-1B laborers less money.
Yeah.
They would, that's the point. They have the ability to it is a race to the bottom, because they know that these imported workers will take 5% less of whatever the market rate is, maybe 10%. And and if you know that you're competing against their ability to import workers specifically for a job that you're competing for, you know that you are going to lose because, people are just as smart everywhere. If they get the proper education, and B, then it just comes down to which one of us is going to be cheaper. And which one, not just going to be cheaper, which one's going to be more controllable?
Yep.
Because these people can't get up and go and say, hey, you know what? You're being a jerk. I'm going to leave Tesla and I'm going to go work at, I don't know, Microsoft. They can't do that.
Yeah, this guy's a Nazi. I don't know if I want to unban him. It looks like we banned them for a good reason. It's like, well, look at the terms of your visa.
Also, what happened leading up to the 90s that Vivek was referring to that may have engendered this culture that he's talking about? And again, it's not culture. We degraded as a society because we slashed taxes for the wealthy and deregulated everything during that time period and left the doors open for industry to do whatever they wanted. That's part of why people feel this alienation that he's gesturing towards, and then at the end of the day, he's just using it for more exploitation.
So, okay, so we have the predicate of this, of Elon Musk and Ramaswamy, who just weeks ago were hailed as saviors of the Republican Party because they were going to cut all sorts of government functions and allow corporations to exploit our resources and socialize the cost of their privatized profits. Also, to be fair, a full quarter minimum of Donald Trump's money that he spent on getting elected, and apparently the vast majority of his get out the vote operation in swing states, was paid for by one person, Elon Musk. One person. And now, all of a sudden, guys like Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon realized, like, oops, why did Trump want these people? Because, of course, they're the moneyed establishment in this country. There's no such thing as someone who has $400 billion who is not part of the establishment. Money is the establishment in this country. It's not a club. It is a bunch of people, a class of people. It's not four people. It is a class of people who have aligned incentive structure to maintain power. And the way you get into their group is by having a similar amount of money, and then you guys negotiate it. Here is Charlie Kirk talking about the problem of all of a sudden having these big supporters.
This is a violation of our social contract. And it sounds good. Let's just let more H-1B workers in. But what about the 23-year-old that went to University of Washington and studied computer science at the UW Computer Science Department? Shouldn't he be given preference above someone who could do the work for far less? It is about priorities. And it's not about what Charlie Kirk wants. It's not about what other people want out there. And I have friends on both sides of this.
Wait, but what about what the free market wants? What about, I thought that they were free market fundamentalists. What about if there is a worker that is offering to do it for a lower wage? Does that count? Does that count?
This is the point. They will not allow for labor to have the same mobility as capital.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, crypto. We want a crypto where the government can't even look at it. We want it so free that there's no regulation on it. But labor, we need a military on the borders to make sure that is under control.
And in the cities.
Yeah, exactly. Just have it everywhere.
Sorry, keep going.
About what Charlie Kirk wants. It's not about what other people want out there. And I have friends on both sides of this debate. It's very simple. It's what the American people wanted. And the American people overwhelmingly voted for less immigration and the prioritization of the American children.
Pause it for a second. I don't know what the words overwhelming mean in this instance. But Donald Trump won by what? 1% of the popular vote?
About less than 2.
Certainly it was under 50% of the popular vote is my understanding. And you'd have to assume that every single one of those voters voted for less immigration than we have right now. And even then, that wouldn't be overwhelming. Go ahead.
Simple. It's what the American people wanted. And the American people overwhelmingly voted for less immigration and the prioritization of the American children and the American worker, not the American oligarch. This is...
Oh, interesting. The oligarchs, first of all, I mean, Charlie Kirk has been completely supported by oligarchs.
Was it Foster Freeze?
I think it was Foster Freeze. It was another guy, though, who died that Kirk is now, I think, like, I can't remember who it was. But, I mean, all these oligarchs fund all of what they do. And here's Steve Bannon waving the same flag as if Donald Trump is also not one of these oligarchs.
Here's our position. You're not going to reform it because we're going to get it shut down, all of it. It should be the top. If Elon Musk's number one thing was Doge for America First, American citizens, this would be at the top of something to take off, to take it down. Why is it not? Because I believe his agenda is how to become the first trillionaire. I'm just saying.
That is his agenda, and it always was. That's part of what he's obsessed with in terms of funding these primary challenges for anybody that goes against the Trump agenda. The goal is for him to maximize his net worth while the Republicans have both the House, the Senate, and the presidency. That's what he's trying to do. But, yeah, I mean, Trump's going to welcome that kind of money. So I wonder how they strike that balance, or if MAGA even cares at the end of the day.
Well, my guess is that at the end of the day, the so-called MAGA and anything that they wanted or anything that they voted for has all been an illusion anyways. They're not going to care about this one way or another. They will get over it depending on what Donald Trump says. That's it. I contend right now that if you voted for Donald Trump, unless you're a wealthy person or a ultra nationalist, that's a very polite way of putting it, or maybe a religious fundamentalist, let's be honest, Christian fundamentalist, whatever reason you thought you were voting for Donald Trump, you're going to get screwed. And this immigration thing is a perfect example. There is, if you believe there should be no immigration or less immigration in this country, there's absolutely no reason to assume that you need to import skilled immigrants any more than unskilled immigrants. They both help this economy. They both bring in, values and ideas that are dynamic and different. But if you believe that immigrants are the problem in this country, that you're losing your sense of America, there's no reason to have either one of them. So let's tune in to Donald Trump. And like I say, Forbes in February of 2020 wrote a piece on how the Trump administration, the first one, really attacked and undermined the H-1B visa program. This was one of their biggest agendas. And based upon what, Bannon says, and I would imagine Stephen Miller say, it's going to be their agenda again. Why wouldn't it be? That would be completely consistent. That's what we've been told people voted for Donald Trump. Can we get a drum roll, please? Can we find a drum roll? Can we find a drum roll? How do we not have a drum roll on our soundboard? Because it's a moment of suspense.
I would make sure to have a drum roll on my soundboard.
I got it. Ladies and gentlemen, now we will hear how Prince Trump has decided. Elon and Vivek, or the rubes who voted for no more immigrants in this country.
Are you in a change your mind on H-1B visas, sir?
I didn't change my mind. I've always felt we have to have the most competent people in our country. We need competent people. We need smart people coming into our country. And we need a lot of people coming in. We're going to have jobs like we've never had before.
But sir, you said you changed your position. You plan to go to
Oh.
funeral next?
Sad trombone now, Matt. Oh my gosh.
Well,
where's your board?
Wow. I
They gonna do everything around here? People are pretty rusty after the whole week.
Yeah, well, you know.
But there it is. Donald Trump does a full 180.
But that's all that matters. King Trump says what he wants, and then the base will like it's been a fun little debate. But
there you go.
It's it. That's it.
Billionaires won.
Yeah. And as long as they get some images of some crying families being torn apart and maybe AOC or I don't know, another member of Congress has an emotional moment and they get to laugh at her about like what the pain they've inflicted, they'll forget about H-1B in a second.
Of course. Can't we get some black people kneeling or something like that and we could talk about something different?
But again, like this is not this is not actually a contradiction. It's always been a lie that, and there is a discrepancy between are we doing this to keep the America white or are we doing this for the labor imperatives of it? And I can't remember who exactly said, but one of the right-wing sort of intelligentsia guys said, well, Americans should like the H-1B program because it's causing brain drain from all these other countries. And it's like, so, okay, the wages get suppressed. If I wanted to go into tech, it's going to be suppressed by people from other countries that are going to work more for less, who might be the exact same competency. But at least India has less like.
But that's the way that all of these things are utilized for their real agenda, whether it's both racism or it could be like, patriotism. It's patriotic for these companies to cause a brain drain from potentially rival companies. But who's going to benefit from this at the end of the day? Just the rich people.
That would be me.
Yeah.
And so, I want to be clear. Do I think we should have an H-1B program? Yes. But should we be extracting money from corporations so that they don't save on the delta? If there really is, technical know-how that we need to fill the gaps, that's fine. But you're going to pay for it. And that money go back in to support, like Bernie's bill, support developing the technical know-how amongst Americans. And while we're at it, let's apply this to people across the spectrum of skill, because there's no reason not to. If you're telling me that you're importing these people because of their work ethic, because of their cultural values, let's bring in the other people from these other immigrants so that we get our stuff picked. And let's develop a way in which we protect them from the exploitation of the capitalist class that brings them in here. Yeah. Niall from Trinidad. Time to hire some skilled immigrants to handle the soundboard.
But but that's part of the thing where it's like, what scares me about this era of Trump is that he does feel kind of untethered from really any promises outside of just the toughness on immigration, which is going to be brutal. But like he I think in part because the Democrats abdicated leadership and responsibility over these past 4 years and never made it so that people, like government, was delivering for them and in a robust way and in a way that was tangible and made sense. And there was an overarching narrative that there's a section of like folks where either they stayed home or Donald Trump makes them feel like he's
plan beats no plan.
Or I'd rather be entertained by my government, which both parties suck and they're not doing anything for me. And at least with him,
plan beats no plan, even if the plan keeps evolving and is really made based on nothing.
Actually, concept of a plan beats no plan.
Exactly.
And we're going to hear in history this like rewriting of this time period to talk about Donald Trump as a political force. And in terms of his charisma, I think that is valid. But we need to, but there were millions of missed opportunities to put this guy in the dustbin of history where he should be. And that's a failure of the opposition party, which is basically a coalition of people who just are not Republicans, as opposed to a party that stands for something more broadly.
Folks.
I mean, we had to bring up the Democrats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we got plenty of
Democrats.
time. We're just at the beginning of the year.
Although we have to do it at the end because that's when our Soros stops, tuning in. And it's past 1 p.m. It's his afternoon nap time.
Exactly. Exactly. Folks, thus ends the first show of 2025. And just as we're on the cusp of a long 4 years, join us, support us, become a member, join the majority-report.com. You can become a member. You can support this show. You can help what we do here, help us grow, thrive, and survive. We get revenue from a couple of different sources. We get it from live read ads. We get it from YouTube ads. We get it from our members, and our members are the one thing that keep us insulated from things like YouTube shutting down or YouTube getting bought by, I don't know, Peter Thiel or Elon Musk or, who knows with the anti-monopoly stuff if things are going to get parsed out.
Saudi YouTube.
What's that? Yes.
Honestly.
It's our members that really keep us independent and thriving.
Particularly you, Mr. Gregorian.
And particularly Mr. Gregorian.
Thank you.
So great to have support from Belgians.
I know.
Our Belgian contingency. Join the majority-report.com. Also, don't forget justcoffee.coop out of Madison, Wisconsin. They're a co-op. They serve great coffee. I just saw the coffee prices are going through the roof. I don't know if they had to raise theirs at Just Coffee. I got to go check. But coffee prices going because there were weather. It's largely climate change. Just Coffee has been working with their farmers for years to make sure that even when they have bad years of crops, that they help support them through that. And sometimes they'll experiment with different blends and whatnot to buy as much as they can from them. It's a great place to buy your coffee, and you can track it. There's a label on the bottom that tell you exactly how much was paid and from whom and from where. Justcoffee.coop. Also, very good. You get majority report blend too.
Yeah, you better.
Emma.
ESPN today, we'll be back. We'll be giving our picks for Week 18, but also talking about a crazy Week 17, the playoff scenarios that we have ahead of us. YouTube.com/ESPN show.
And Left Reckoning did a bunch of shows over the break, including with Nathan Robinson talking about Matt Iglesias and our bum steers of the year. I gave special notice to Adam Silver and the cultivating of gambling addictions. An increasingly younger and younger problem thanks to the liberalization of sports betting, which I'm sure means good things for the future. So yeah, check that out. Oh, and for patrons, patreon.com/Left Reckoning, I talked to a letter carrier about the privatization stuff and DeJoy and what the last mile delivery is like and that sort of stuff. So check that out, patreon.com/Left Reckoning.
We do our competition for fun a bit for the against the spread, but it is deeply depressing that when gambling was legalized in this country, that there was no effort from our government to say, hey, wait a minute. Is there a conflict of interest with these sports leagues doing immediate business partnerships with gambling where the product is the subject of what people are gambling on? And the NBA and the NFL and whatever, there's money to be made. Now it's everywhere. And I saw this rant by Bill Burr on, I think it was Alana Glazer's podcast, talking about the financialization of sports and everything in our daily life. And it's really an enormous problem. And when we talk about a second Gilded Age and before a crash or something like that, crypto, gambling, the markets that are sub-markets existing in other areas that we were just, that don't need to be there, These are big bubbles of money and debt that people are going into that are gonna really, I think, hurt people at the end of the day. So, on that note, fun stuff.
Poor Pete Rose. Where did he get? Where did he get?
Ahead
of his time, really.
Yeah, before his time.
Yeah.
Will from Minnesota on the IM says, Happy New Year, Sam and crew. Did you see Jank tell Francesca that he'd rather have a beer with racists rather than talk to you? I did hear about that. We may talk about it in the fun half. Briefly.
Hashtag cold feet Jank. I guess he doesn't want to talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
It would be...
He didn't say a beer with racists. He just mentioned people who are racist that he would have a beer with, right? I didn't watch it. I assume he didn't say I'd rather have a beer with just generically a racist.
I that could be just a paraphrasing, but it is funny that, I don't know. I mean,
like
I don't
Charlie Kirk, who is a
understand
racist.
what he's afraid of.
It just was funny that came up when you were talking about betting. Anyways, we got to go. We got to head into the fun half. 646-257-3920.
3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow.
What? What is that going on?
It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it. Let's go, Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's...
Stop talking for a second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? Is this?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound.
Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports. We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go throw up.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Matt.
I'm positively quivering. I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-3501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
654 $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
Call it satire. Sam goes at satire.
On top of it all, my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the week being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye. We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. This is good. We should just mention that Chuck Schumer endorsed Ben Wickler.
Whoa.
For
the DNC chair. February 1st is the, I think, election. And it's really coming down to a 2-man race between him and Ken Martin, it appears.
Is that true? Is it really that close?
Well, like, they're the only ones that are really getting these high profile endorsements. So Martin got 100 out of the 400 plus DNC members, but Wickler getting the leader of the Democrats in the Senate is a big deal. You mentioned to me earlier that Schumer did endorse Keith Ellison in the race that he lost to Tom Perez. So it's not like this doesn't mean Wickler's going to win, but it can't hurt him at all to have this support, because there are, Pramila Jayapal is speaking kindly about him, but also the Third Way guy is speaking about Wickler in this way. And it's a focus on his organizing and proven success in the state of Wisconsin.
Yeah.